Okay, question here.
Will the grant for planting the 1 hectare of land be a once-off payment, or will it be an annual payment so that farmers are still having an income from that land yearly like they would have without the forest, or will it be a once-off payment and that's it?
Well, we are still further discussing this, but as of right now, we think it may be a once-off payment.
So a large sum of money, just out to like loads of farmers at once.
Not exactly. It will be done gradually over time. We won't be paying a bunch of farmers big sums of money all in one go, as of course we need to acquire this money.
Okay, now we're moving to crime. It's gone ridiculous. Leo, what do you think happened?
Well, I suppose along with the increase in social problems and everything comes an increase in crime, and there's no denying that. But we have, in the past, we have reopened Temple Moor, and we have an extra 1,800 Gardaí come into play in 2019. But the next step in stopping this crime is we're going to fund up to 700 additional recruits every year under Fine Gael. We are going to put body-worn cameras into Gardaí to increase the amount of evidence gotten. We plan to expand the northeast inner city model to other areas to tackle social disadvantages, and we plan to implement the report of the Commission on the future of policing.
Question.
Are you going to reopen rural guard stations?
That isn't in talks at the moment, but if we are to stay in power, that could definitely be something we could look into.
Would any of the other parties be willing to reopen?
Of course, because, as I'm sure you are all aware, Dublin is not the only part of Ireland. Of course, Dublin needs radically more policing than the rest of the country, but Dublin only accounts for a quarter of our population. The other 3/4 will need policing as well. And so Sinn Féin plan to increase Garda numbers to 16,000 nationwide, and we'll also recruit 2,000 more civilian staff to free up guards from menial duties at the desk and let them get to the frontline duties where they are most needed. And we will establish a sentencing council within all the court systems within the country. Meanwhile, we plan to invest 2 million more in resources for the court services, the DPP and the CAB.
If I may, Mary Lou, you're on about there hiring 16,000 new recruits.
No, to raise the numbers
16,000.
to 16,000.
16,000. And do you know what it is at the moment?
I know it is beneath that and is severely lacking.
And you say that you're going to take them away from their desk jobs and onto the front of line.
By recruiting civilian staff that will be Garda vetted and will have adequate experience in dealing with the menial jobs such as office work within Gardaí stations across the country.
But you're not denying that this menial office jobs, you're saying this should just be denied completely?
No, we believe it is just as important as the frontline duties, but...
Okay, we have a question here as well.
Question for Sinn Féin.
Of course.
Sinn Féin has spoken many times about reforms to the special criminal courts.
Yes.
What would these reforms entail?
These reforms would entail that there will not be special kangaroo courts set up to challenge any crimes or try criminals without any evidence of crimes that were convicted in the past, and we believe that crimes committed after 20 years ago should be investigated thoroughly, but should not take up as much of the court's resources as we all know, to accommodate for the current crime uprising that has struck into the country. So, thank you very much.
Before we move on, any other comments about crime from any other parties? These two here are very quiet. Nothing?
Well, I just want to say, I don't really see what Fine Gael are doing to increase police forces. It doesn't really seem clear about their answer to increasing police forces in rural Ireland, because 40% of the police force was cut and crime rates are rising, and they made promises to increase in the last election and it just didn't seem to happen. The Democratic Party would promise to increase the amount of police in rural areas by placing one main Garda in a rural area, so to get to know everyone and prevent crime before it even happens.
Say it again?
Illegal drug use.
Which party is this for?
Any party that wants
Any
to.
party? Well, Sinn Féin believe that the drug problem in Ireland is a scourge and that it is not simply a matter of drugs being used, but a chain of supply and demand. Now, the demand is there, but if we can cut off the supply by introducing more staff at ports and airports to funnel through the illegal shipment of drugs into this country, we believe by tackling this problem at its source and cutting the flower at the root, we will solve this problem.
And Taoiseach, how do you think it has gone so bad? Like, how are drugs getting into the country so much?
Well, I suppose, Claire, you know, with the way technology and the way things have gone nowadays, you know, it's very hard to crack down on such crime. But with the increase of recruitments and with the increase of the body-worn evidence, this will become much more likely to stop. And if we get it at, like Mary Lou said, if we get it right at the butt, then hopefully we will cut it out over the next few years.
We all know there's strikes with teachers and doctors and nurses. How would he plan on cutting down on that? And like, are you going to give them more pay, or are you just going to give them what they want? Like, what's going to happen there for anyone that
Well,
wants
if Sinn Féin would, of course the bracket of pay for new nurses and new teachers is appalling, as they are in a totally different pay bracket to teachers and nurses. Well, not just them, but other sectors in the tertiary economic sector, that they will also be bumped up to their pre-existing bracket with a 3-year transition process.
Any other comments? I have no further questions, so if the audience has any other questions, if not, we're finished, and thanks for listening.
If you want. Claire, are we going to do a closing segment for each party, please?
Would you like to do
Their manifestos.
Yes, we'll start with Taoiseach, of course.
Firstly, I'd like to say, Claire, thank you for having me here, and thank you all for listening. Something that wasn't spoke about today was Brexit. And now people have been saying I've been focused on Brexit and the economy, but what we're not looking at is the fact that this is the gateway to all the other things spoken about today, to education, to housing, to healthcare. And at the moment, the way Brexit is going, I've built great relationships and great experience with people over the past few years with the problem of Brexit, and it is crucial at this time that we keep these relationships and we keep this experience going into the next step of Brexit. In relation to voting, I hope you vote for Fine Gael for the Roscommon Galway section, for the Roscommon Galway constituency. Aisling Dolan is your representative, and then for the East Galway constituency we have Kieran Cannon or Pete Roach. And thank you, and look forward to a future to look forward to with Fine Gael. Thank you.
I don't have a planned closing statement. Will I?
Audience questions.
Yeah.
They have no.
You ask again.
There's a question over here.
What do you plan to do with climate change? How do you plan to improve?
If I may. Right, so it says that we only have a decade to change to save our natural world. And of course, none of the other parties around me have mentioned anything to do with
I
this.
haven't asked questions about it.
Understood. So we plan on ending issuing oil and gas exploration licenses and we are firmly against importation against fracked gas. And we are planning to ban single-use plastics, of course, over time, because plastic is widely used and it is a main problem with pollution.
What would you replace plastics with?
We will replace plastics with biodegradable plastics.
Where are you going to get them?
We are still discussing this.
Claire, if I may, climate action is an ongoing issue and something that will have to be worked on, not just by the government but by everyone individually. It's something we're all going to have to work on if we want to have a bright future.
We have another question over here.
How can we make gas more affordable? Like, it's like we have to go over the electric, solar, streaming power, all that stuff.
How will we make it
So all the environmentally friendly stuff, how are we going to make it more affordable?
Well, I suppose it's not really more so about making it affordable, it's about making it accessible. You know, electric cars at the moment, they're on the increase, but we need to increase them more. So by 2030, I plan to move to 70% renewable electricity, and I plan to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. And along with that, I plan to plant 440 million trees by 2030. And also in relation to education and climate action, I plan on doing a study on free transport for all children under 18 for public transport. Because public transport is something that will hugely help with climate action, and I believe this is where we should start.
Any further comments?
If I may, Claire, Sinn Féin proposed to do something similar by introducing free public transportation for all people under 18.
You have a question?
Do you realise that electric cars are worse off for the environment than petrol and diesel cars? They don't last as long as they must be replaced every 5 years because the battery goes and can't be replaced, so you have to buy a brand new car. And 3, electric cars just aren't feasible in rural Ireland as there isn't the infrastructure for them.
I understand that they aren't feasible in rural Ireland yet, but we plan to increase the amount of charging points, cycling areas, cycling routes, all of that will be increased over the next few years. In relation to it not being as good for the environment as petrol or diesel cars is something that I'm not an expert in. I suppose just in relation to what we have heard and what we know is best to do from the government point of view is that the electric car is the route to go down. So that is, from the experts I've heard from, that is what I'm going to go with.
Sorry, can I come in there? Can we justify the use of electric cars given that there is so much child labour involved worldwide, especially in poorer countries, in the sourcing of raw materials for the batteries?
I suppose in relation to electric cars, it's definitely, you know, if we could ramp up the amount of public transport use, if we could ramp up the amount of carpooling, there might even be a need in years and years to come for these cars. You know, if we could increase the amount of money into public transport and into the trains, and if we could put the labour and the money into the public transport system.
Labour has something to say about that.
There's 1.5 million homes across Ireland that need to be retrofitted with solar panels, and stoves and gas appliances need to be gotten rid of. Labour plans on using the €400 million surplus that's currently in the carbon tax, and also the €13 billion overture budget by Apple that Fine Gael will not accept. This is the cleaner and simpler way of doing this instead of the Green Party's plan to repay the public via a cheque in the post. Currently, our carbon tax is going into the exchequer, and Labour plans to work closely with construction companies to retrofit these houses and to provide apprenticeship to train young workers to carry out such renovations on 1.5 million homes that need to be retrofitted across our country.
Any other questions?
I just want to go back to the issue in education about lower paid teachers, that recently the Teachers Union of Ireland were on strike for on Tuesday, and ASTI have also been on strike in the past for that. The issue is pay parity, equal pay for equal work. Teachers who were recruited after 2011 are on 20% lower wage than teachers who were recruited before that. What are each of the parties planning to do for this issue in education? It's a huge issue that is going to affect education in the future.
Well, as Sinn Féin have stated previously on the topic of education, we plan to introduce a 3-year transition period in which lower paid teachers will be brought into the more accommodating pay bracket that teachers recruited before 2011 are already sitting in.
If I may, we plan over the next 5 years to. Sorry, 2 seconds. The person who pays the higher rate tax, we are planning to increase this to people paying over 50,000, and this will raise the USC exemption to 13,000 to 20,500. But in relation to education itself and teachers, we plan to increase the capitation paid to schools by 5% annually over the next 5 years. And we also plan to increase the paternal maternity leave for both. We're going to introduce it for male parents, and then we're going to increase it for women from 32 weeks to 42 weeks.
And what about, in 2011, this measure was brought in as a temporary measure, and in order to, during the recession, why have they not brought the teachers' wages back?
This will all come with the over the next 5 years, the change of the increase up to the 50,000 for the higher rate tax.
Is that all the questions? If we'd like every party to do a closing statement, if you want to hear it. It's not necessary though.
Well, Sinn Féin, overall, something that was not mentioned was Irish unity, which was the basis on which Sinn Féin was started.
In the office, Evan Considine, Ben Price, Laura Tully and Tara Maloney. Thank you.
When Sinn Féin was founded in 1905 by Arthur Griffith, one of our main points, if not our main point, was reunification with the North. Now, this came later, obviously, as the separation between Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland did not take place until after the Civil War, in which our main issue moved to unification. So Sinn Féin will seek the full implementation of the Good Friday Agreement, publish a white paper in layman's terms for every single constituent in the Republic and the North of Ireland on Irish unity, establish a joint Oireachtas committee on the joint Irish unity, secure a referendum both north and south of the border for reunification. We also would like to touch on the crime sector with an investment of more than 2 million in resource going to the court services, as have been previously stated. Housing, we will also abolish the property tax for all landlords, and as I'm sure Ms Martin and the Taoiseach are both landlords, as I'm sure you all are aware. So this will, property tax will also affect them, so I would like to get their views on it.
Mary Lou, just back when you brought up housing again, earlier you said that you were planning on building 100,000 houses
Yes.
for 65 billion, was it?
No, for 6.5 billion.
6.5 billion. So even lower again.
Yes.
So that's going to work out at 65,000 a house to build,
Yes.
to pay the workers, all of that.
For the house to be built.
Is this a credible and realistic figure?
Of course it's a
65,000
credible,
a house.
realistic figure. Most houses now that were built after the recession by Fine Gael were at an average of 120,000, which varied to 85,000. We plan to keep this in a more realistic range between 50,000 and 65,000.
Mary Lou, if I may, where are you getting this money to build all these houses?
Well, as I previously stated, from taxing the larger corporations such as Apple and international industries, which owe us untold billions and millions, from cutting the absorbent pension rates of all politicians, I will not discuss figures of current politicians, but for example, Enda Kenny is on a previous Taoiseach, and leader of Fine Gael was on a salary last year of 200,000 plus an 80,000 lump sum, not to mention his own personal pension.
Okay, I think we've heard enough now.
One more. Just in relation to you want to cut the USC tax for people under
30,000 euros.
Under 30,000. So by cutting this tax to
Yes.
people under 30,000, this will cost the government a year 450 million. How do you plan that where are we going to find this 450 million other than this USC tax?
Well, the USC tax, the universal social charge, it will cost 1.2 billion a year, which we plan.
Sorry, can we just, nobody's to touch those sheets yet. Don't put anything on them yet, please. They're just being put out. We're going to need to start the election now in a minute.
Of course, yes.
So if you want to just make one more point.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Of course.
So you want to tax all the big companies like Apple, you mentioned Apple.
Larger corporations.
Yeah, the multinational companies. So how are you going to attract them to Ireland if you're going to just start charging them for everything with housing?
As I'm sure you are aware, Ireland is a tax haven for multinational companies, which is what lured Apple to Ireland in the first place. Now, we believe that the current government, who have not collected 12 to 13 billion euros in debt from Apple, this is just simply not acceptable. So Sinn Féin plan to collect every single cent from every multinational company that owes the Irish government tax. And on the topic of making it more attractive for multinational companies, we plan to reduce the tax allowances to a level more comparable with the United Kingdom.
That's everything now.
Okay, I would just like to thank all of you for your attention. You've been really good for the last nearly an hour at this stage, and absolutely brilliant presentations from all of the different political parties and all the students at TY in 5th year that have put a lot of effort into preparing for this, and I just think they deserve a huge round of applause. I didn't want you to fill this in until it's kind of explained to you what's going to happen now. We're going to